Welcome to the Two Girls with Grief book club. We might laugh or we might cry, but we always read. We're your hosts. I'm Kendall Rogers.
And I'm Rachel Dwyer. This is the book club where every month we read grief stories, both real and fictional. And today we are kicking off a new book, and you shouldn't be surprised at this point where my book choices lead. So today's book is A Home for the Holidays by Taylor Hahn. And so, for a quick synopsis of what to expect from this book, for wedding singer Mel Hart, the holidays have always retained a certain magic. Her mother, Connie, always managed to pull off spectacular Santa hijinks that convinced Mel to keep believing in Santa way longer than other kids. Those moments meant everything to Mel because the rest of the year, life was unpredictable because of her mother's alcohol use. But 2 weeks before Christmas, Mel gets a call from the hospital. Her mother has died. Then a woman shows up on Mel's doorstep claiming to be Connie's estranged best friend, promising to tell Mel a different narrative, one in which Connie was almost a famous country music star if only a man hadn't gotten in the way. Instead of spending Christmas alone in her dead mother's house, Mel agrees to stay with Barb for the holidays, finding herself in the middle of Barb's complicated family and uncovering secrets while fighting an attraction to Barb's in the middle of divorced son. As Christmas approaches, Mel reckons with how little she knew about her mother's past while re-examining her own future. A Home for the Holidays is a moving exploration of complicated grief, mother-daughter relationships, loving someone with addiction, and the redemptive power of opening one's heart to love in all forms.
What
So
a
that is my choice.
synopsis.
Yeah. I feel like we probably need to give people a little bit more of what we're reading, like what
Yeah,
to expect from these books. So I figured the best way is just
that's
to
a good
read the
call.
synopsis of the actual books because they tell it best. So what do you think of my book pick so far, Kendall?
I like it. I like that we're picking something with a holiday touch along with a griefy book pick. Very niche topic, but I'm glad somebody has written about it. Even just like going through the synopsis, it's giving a little bit crying at H mark, giving a little bit beach read. So I think this is a great pick for the month, and I'm really excited to get more into the thick of the plot.
I've actually read the whole book already because I've I got into it. The book definitely goes into some complicated feelings around grief and mother relationships and
Mhm.
different things like that, but also has a light parts of the storyline, which I
Yeah,
always like that. I need that little boost of like happy go lucky feeling,
right.
crushes. I need that to like be paired with my grief books.
Mhm.
That's like my perfect sandwich of grief books, but Kindles aren't always like that, so it's a good mix. Like
It
I'm
is.
I'm expanding my grief book catalog, and I'm reading books that I wouldn't necessarily go for, but I feel like they also have a lot of I don't know, it's like you learn a lot about different grief stories, you can experience different
Yes.
things, and it just shows you different ways that people experience grief, which I think is important to do.
I agree, and I think our book choices complement each other very well because clearly I don't have a problem leaning into the painful part of my grief, but some people that's not what they want or want to even focus on or deal with, and that's all fair, how you handle your grief. I think reading stories that have like a touch of optimism, a component of like love and hope helps people start to digest their grief without it being painful or being the sole focus of a story. Whereas, like, those are what I've loved about some of your choices of our previous picks is that there's a element of focusing on your grief, but there's other things to focus on too. It's not just purely on the heartache that you're feeling within grief, especially if you're new to grieving and mourning.
If you're not following along with the videos and you're just seeing the pics, like, listening to these episodes, you'll understand a little bit why they're so so different in the choices. But yeah, I wanted to have one that was holiday focused. I think and our next episode for, like, the holiday edition, I think we'll go into it more, but the holidays is just a really hard time for grievers.
Mhm.
So I thought it was a kind of a good mix of finding a story that was around grief, but also had the holiday elements, which I think really plays into I feel like just the difficulties of grief and just how complicated it is, with
Yeah.
so many different feelings and layered feelings and all this stuff. So I thought it did a good job of that. But the book opens up with Mel kind of sharing how much she loves Christmas. And then when you read it more, it gets a little bit sad about why she loves Christmas so much because her mom made it so special. Like she believed in Santa for so long because her mom made that one day very magical for her, went all out, and she always could rely on Santa being there. And the reason that she loved that so much was because her mom was not reliable in real life, and she just thought, like, Santa, this like, mythical Santa was the one thing that she could count on every year. It would be this magical experience, and when you read more into it, you're like, "Oh, that's really sad." Like, it's cute, when a kid believes in Santa for so long and gets to experience that magic, but when you realize the reasoning is because her mom was not reliable and had an alcohol problem, that kind of dims the light on that joy that you initially read from her story.
Yeah, I think this is very relatable for people who have relationships with people with addiction and know how difficult it is to like put hope and stock into somebody suffering with addiction. And this is no fault on the person, but I think this book, especially this just like scene right here in chapter one, really examines that some people really put all their like the magic of one day on this person. Like, I felt the same way growing up too. I also had, like, enchanted views around Christmas. I think a lot of kids do. And so it is, like you said, it is, like, really cute and sweet, but also framed with a little bit of sadness around it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember waking up as a kid and being so excited to just, like, see the Christmas gifts and what did Santa get me and that excitement, and I think we've talked about it a bit before of just how the holidays feel so different because when you've lost, parents especially, but it just changes the way that the holidays feel because there's no one creating magic for you anymore, and I feel like
Yeah.
adulting is already so hard, and then it's like you have to create all the magic for yourself.
Yeah.
And, that just makes it even heavier when you're like, "I just wanna enjoy the holidays," but if I enjoy the holidays at all this year, it's gonna be because I made that happen. Like, I actively did things to find joy versus just being able to enjoy it on your own. It's so different. Like, you can't experience any joy without you having to do it, and I feel that so hard this year, especially because I feel like every joy that I experience is me going out to try to do that. Versus, like, you could just show up and be like, "Okay, I have gifts from my family. We're gonna wake up and it's gonna feel magical," and all this stuff, which doesn't really happen anymore, or doesn't happen anymore, actually, just to be frank, doesn't happen anymore, that magical stuff, so I feel like it brought up a lot of those feelings. It's just like, "Oh, I miss that magic of the holidays," and I think everyone has complicated families in some way, but thankfully, I didn't deal with any, like, family with addiction or anything, which I think it can just create a lot of issues in a family and create fallout and all this stuff, and you see it when she talks about how she wasn't gonna get vaccines or get her homework done or do any of those things. Like, bills didn't always get paid, but she had to, like, handle everything to make sure that things happened, and she had to be, like, the adult as, like, a little kid, which is really hard. So, it was interesting as, like, the book opened up to, like, these happy moments, and then it kinda switches to, like, oh, the reality of it is actually pretty sad.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who read this book will feel very similarly in that either like if you've lost a parent, you're losing that magic of Christmas time. Because even as you grow older, it kind of begins to dwindle, or I shouldn't say dwindle, but maybe as much change. Maybe the magic of Christmas just morphs more into like appreciating the time you spend with family. But I think her talking about, like, the responsibilities that she has to fill, whether you're a child who have lost a parent or, like, you're a child and your parent has gone through an experience or they're grieving themselves, and all of a sudden you have to assume all these responsibilities to keep the household running. It is a lot of burden to put on to kids, and I think just anybody who is also around somebody with addiction or around somebody who's grieving to be like, "This is a different this is gonna be a different type of holiday than I think, people would anticipate in years past."
So, going into chapter 2, so we're only gonna be doing chapters 1 through 2. We'll probably do a few more chapters in the next episode, 'cause I feel like generally pretty short, but chapter 2 opens up in present day, and you find out that Mel is, basically a wedding singer. They do weddings and, like, corporate functions, and they're doing basically a corporate function opening in chapter 2, and you find out more of her current dynamics, that she lives with her boyfriend, who's also in the band, who sounds like a douche canoe. His parents bought an apartment for them to both live in. Well, I think mostly for him to live in, and then she moved in with him, and she pays rent, but, like, lower rent, but she doesn't feel comfortable there, like, I think she said she wasn't comfortable to go to the bathroom in that apartment. It just didn't feel like home to her, it wasn't a cozy place, which I feel like already sets you up to the dynamics of the relationship and that space. I can't imagine not
Yeah.
feeling comfortable in your own home to just
Right.
be and exist.
Well, and because when you go home, you're supposed to let your guard down, you're supposed to relax, you're supposed to, like, indulge in the things that you wanna do in your own home. That's, like, the beauty of it, right? I felt a lot of sympathy of, like, her not being able to have that feeling for herself.
One thing that really stuck out with me with her, I mean, you find out that she falls in love with, like, a divorced guy from just, like, the synopsis, like, you know that it's gonna be a different love interest, but after the function, she wants to go to, like, a holiday theme bar, which I if you've been listening to episodes, you know that I love a holiday theme bar, and he did not like, her best friend and her boyfriend, she wanted them to go with her, and I think her best friend was down, but then her boyfriend was, like, complaining the whole time about how he didn't wanna go, how it sucked, and I just feel like you should never crush someone else's joy, especially your partner's joy. Like, if you're
Yeah,
excited about that and your partner is not, like, not, it's not like it's, like, this crazy thing, it's just it's a thing that happens during the holidays that you can go to and enjoy, like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. So, I really did not like that he was just, like, giving her a hard time about something that she was excited about for the holidays. To me, I was like, "Red flag."
yes, huge red flags.
For personally, for that. I also thought it was a little bit like her friend left her in line too, to go meet up with somebody, like a hookup, which I also thought was a red flag of, like,
Yes.
you never leave your friend in line to an establishment at night by themselves.
Absolutely not. That's not a good
Eh
friend.
yeah, her boyfriend also left her, which is also huge, like, no, what you don't do that, like, you don't do that to a friend, you definitely shouldn't do your girlfriend. So, already I was like, not a huge fan of both of these people because you don't stranger danger, you don't do that. You don't leave your friend alone like that.
Yeah, I think it's also, like, it's a really sad indicator that her support system is not coming through for her, even on something simple like this, which obviously is gonna be a bigger, later on of, like, not having a good support system, especially when you're grieving, and I think there's so many people out there who wish they had stronger support systems. I can recognize that I was very blessed and lucky that I had a very strong and wide support system, but I also saw a lot of people's true colors and realized, like, "Oh, maybe this person that I thought I could depend on in this moment isn't really that dependable or reliable." And so I think this is, like, unfortunately, one example just for her in this small instance that when something bigger is going to happen, they're not gonna really be there to help her through it.
I will say from someone that's read the whole book, I feel like they don't go into the friendship part enough. Like, I feel
Mm.
like what other book did we were reading where we're like, oh, The
Was it
Beach
beach
Read.
read? Yeah.
Yeah, where I thought it was really a good point of just, like, friends not being supportive
Mhm.
or just, like, not having her back, and this is before she experienced grief, but, like, I would never leave a friend alone at night to go somewhere to, like, for a hookup, or just for, I mean, in general, for anything, but, like, definitely not for that, that's just super messed up, and you're not looking out for your friend's well-being, so I was not a fan of that, and I think it's one of those things where it's not called out enough. I don't know if they're it's included in the book, but I feel like I don't know, maybe it's just not a point that people take to write in these stories of just how friendships can fall apart and just ways that it shows that they might not be there for you in there. Like, I thought it was downplayed how messed up that is to leave someone alone at night to go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something worth and it yeah, you're right, that's not a conversation being had much in this, like, grief space and that I think we really uphold family relationships and then, like, romantic relationships, but friendship relationships are just as, like, valuable, and important, and should be also, like, that revered, and when I was going through, like, the year of my, like, immediate grief after losing my dad, like, my friends were there, like, they came through, they were trying to learn how to go through this with me, and I appreciated that immensely, but I didn't have, like, a romantic partner to lean on. I had my family, of course, and they were also grieving, so it's like they got it, but my friendships were so important in that years and, like, still to this day, like, my friends are incredible and wanting to learn more about grief and learning how to support me, and I think even this podcast, like, they're listening to it and be like, "Oh, I didn't even know that's how you were feeling or that's what you were going through." And then unfortunately, I think, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people out there with not good support systems or like, their friends end up copping out when they're really, like, called to the plate. After, like, this experience with myself, I'm like, "Man," like, the second my friends need help, I'm there, like, no questions asked for what they've done for me. But, yeah, I think it's just, like it's a very sad reality check that this is the reality of a lot of people and not having, like, good friends who wanna be there and help them.
I will say, since I've experienced 3 losses, every time I've been dating someone, the guy has completely let me down. So, I don't think you're missing I don't think you're missing anything by,
Take some
not
advice
having
out there.
a romantic partner during grief. Yeah, it was definitely not anything remotely helpful or supportive, so,
Yeah, I think grief
yeah, I'm
is
missing out.
it'll test a re they will it'll what is it the word? Like, stress test a relationship because there are some people, the people that really care about you, who will not ask a question. They will do what they have to do, they will learn what they need to do, they'll step up to the plate, they'll think of solutions, and then, like, yeah, there's other people who will just, like, be like, "You're different. You've changed. What happened to you? You're not fun anymore." And it's like, "Well, yeah, you're grieving. Yeah, you're changing fundamentally as a person." And it's like, you thought I was just, like, sad for one day, and then the next day everything's fine again? Like, no, like, this is something, like,
Yeah.
in your case, you have to carry for the rest of your life. Like, it's not just, like, done after 1 week of grief. And I think
No,
that's, like,
it's
a
not.
misconception a lot of romantic partners have, and I mean, probably more people should go through it to realize if the relationship would survive, like, literally the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, and I think it's a different element of, "Oh, I lost people, like, 10, 8 years 6 years ago," that some people would assume that you're over it, and, like, it's
Yeah.
not a big issue.
Yeah.
In reality, it is,
Yeah, it's very much
and
a part of you.
yeah, and just, like, not ask questions or anything, I think is crazy. I feel like we've gotten to know so many more people in the grief space. We've created
Yeah.
such a nice growing community of grievers, and just talking to new people and talking to men that are grieving, I'm like, "Okay, there are men that understand it,
Mhm.
so there's hope out there." Like, there are men
Yeah.
that can talk about it. I think I mentioned it before in the dating episode. I was like, "Oh, I'm only gonna date a guy that experienced it," and then I dated, and I was like, "Oh, he just was really different about how he talks about his grief. It was all about him and not." And I was like, "Maybe
Yeah.
that's not a requirement anymore." And I don't know, but I mean, I Kendall knows I recently just ended it ended another thing, but another but
After that.
and that was a part of the problem, was just the not being able to talk about it, and I shouldn't have to, like, keep bringing it up to be like, "You don't really know me if you don't know that. You don't know them, you don't know this about me, and you're
Yeah.
not doing anything about it." You know? Like,
Yeah.
And I thought I took it aside, I'm like, "If I'm telling you that I created this podcast and stuff, like, I would expect you to listen to it, to care, to say
Yeah.
anything." And it literally was like, never brought it up again, and, like, just like, "Oh, that's probably good that you're doing that." I'm like, "That's just not at all."
It's
That's not supportive at all. So I think it's just one of those things where it's like the more and more I think you're just building such a good community of just human beings. And also I think I'm learning of what is required in a relationship through grief and trial and error through that because
yeah.
I didn't know. And before that I probably would have picked someone totally different than I would now.
Yeah.
But then would they have been there for me through the whole thing? Like I doubt who I would have picked back then would have been good.
Right. Yeah, and I think, like, I hear like, you and I talked about this, I think, on the dating episode of, like, this expect not an expectation, but this almost, like, hopeful belief that after losing somebody, like, that love interest comes on scene and then, like, oh, weirdly, everything is better again, and because that's how it's depicted in the shows and the
Yeah.
movies. But in reality, I think every griever who is listening to this knows it's not like the movies. It's not like you grieve for a month and then it's over. It's like you're gonna go through this for a while, and it's hard, and it affects every aspect of your life. As you try to navigate, how do you go forward? Not just with, like, the daily operations of your life, but, like, these emotional
Yeah.
facets and capacities of you.
It's definitely not gonna be just like meeting a man that's gonna, like, fix it all.
Yeah.
I actually just saw a TikTok, which really pissed me off, was it was this guy selling some, like, program, and he basically said that he fixed a woman's gut health, and that fixed her grief. And he was like, it was really quick, and I was just like, "What
What?
kind of bullshit is this?" And what made me really sad was that it's like, there's people that are just really sad and hurting that are gonna see something like that and
Right.
pay who knows how much because someone's telling them this story, and I'm like, "That is not how it works." Can
Yeah.
grief affect your body? Can it affect your health? 100%. But fixing your gut health is not gonna just make your grief go away. It doesn't just go away. And
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, "This is some BS," because it doesn't just go away. And, yeah, I, like, potentially led myself into a comment war, but the person just replied, like, with prayer hands or something, and I was like, this is gross. This is, like, such misinformation," but
Yeah.
I don't even
I
know where I was going with that, but basically that was just, like, a
think
really shitty shitty thing of human beings trying to do that, and I was like,
Yeah. Take it as a PSA that, like, grievers are a vulnerable population. You are desperate, you are hurting, you are in pain, and I will say, like, I too would believe almost and I would try almost everything I saw online on, like, how do you make grief less painful? But, yeah, grief became more manageable to me when I came to the realization that it's not gonna go away, and that I
yeah,
need to learn how to live with it and adapt with it and know how to manage my grief. At the beginning, I couldn't, and that's okay because when you're first, like, in the throes of mourning and grieving, like, you can't even comprehend how you develop a plan on how are you gonna, like, how do I live and still love the person who's never gonna come back? That's such a
yeah,
hard conversation you have to come with yourself, but, yeah, I think, like, for one, like and it's probably the things I think grievers have already heard, like, therapy helps. I think support group has helped you and I a whole bunch. These small things of, like, trying to, like, create and find joy in your day even amongst all the sadness you might be holding. But, yeah, there's no magical cure out there. That sounds, like, so, like, Alex Jonesy, like, "Oh, I've got this thing I'm gonna sell you to fix all your
yeah.
problems."
Take 2 probiotics and something, and your life will be changed. And I think it's hard. I think it's like a fine line, and, it's like, you wanna help people and you want it to be a bigger platform, but then it's like you don't want to do anything that feels, like, exploitative of people's grief, but you wanna
Exactly.
support them, but
Yeah.
also you can't provide all the resources forever for free,
Yeah.
with different stuff too, and so I think it's a little, hard, but for that, I was like, No, like, what? Like, I saw that and I was just so appalled. I was like, "How the fact that someone paid you for that and you're taking credit for something," and it yeah, it was crazy, and it just, like there's some people that speak so well
Mhm.
that people will believe whatever they say,
Yeah. And, like,
and that's
there
what's
is
hard.
some truth in and I think that's like there's, like, a grain of truth embedded in all that of, like, yes, you should probably eat healthy all the time, like, whether you're grieving or
Yeah,
you're not, and that does have an effect on, like, your mood or your hormones or your energy
yeah,
levels, but I think, like, most people, like, even if you're grieving and you're eating healthy, that still does not fix the fact that you're grieving. Like, the grieving
yeah,
exists in, like, a soul thing, like, it's your heart, it's breaking, it's like you're in a
yeah, it's
perpetual
it's totally
depression,
different.
and, like
Yeah, I do know where it's like you're just eating crap. Yeah, your body's not gonna feel good.
yeah,
You know, if I eat a pound of cheese, I'm gonna feel like shit. You know, I shouldn't do that, but that's not gonna fix my grief if I don't eat a
exactly.
pound of cheese. So, yeah, it was just crazy. I mean, people it's wild out there, but I don't know, I went on a rant about this random man when I was talking about dating and being disappointed. But, yeah, I mean, basically, that's what happens in the book as well, and we'll read more into it, but he leaves her, and then she sees a Christmas tree lot, and she decides, "I'm gonna buy a Christmas tree," even though he doesn't like Christmas trees, and he doesn't like real Christmas trees, which I'm all pro Christmas tree because you need the smell, you need the pines, you need as much Christmas spirit as you can get, so get the real tree. That
We're live Christmas tree over here on this
I'll
channel.
stand on that soapbox all Christmas long. Get a
That's the
real
hill
tree.
she's dying on is to get a live tree.
Yeah, if there's a hill I'm gonna die on, it's gonna be get a real tree.
This is an anti-plastic,
Yeah.
prefab, pre-lidded Christmas tree. You need to suffer when you put those lights on the tree.
Yeah.
That's humanity.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so she decides that she's just gonna go do it since he left her, and I was like, "Fair, fair." And, like, they're closing up and she's able to get the tree, and then she gets a call from the doctor, and he's being kinda cagey and just saying, like, "Your mom's here, or you need to get here immediately," and she's like, "Well, I have a Christmas tree. I can't just go there with a Christmas tree." And then eventually he tells her she passed away. And so she's just like has this thing that she got to bring her joy, and like her mom's dead. And she's like she said that she dragged the tree for 2 miles without even realizing. I think she zoned out, which I feel like we're both familiar with that, where you just kinda zone out, like
Yeah.
nothing feels real. And then she stays up alone decorating her tree like her mom and her did. Which I feel like is a totally relatable response, like, you're just trying to cling to something,
Yeah.
and she was in denial, so she didn't go to the hospital, and I just totally like, I felt that loneliness in those pages of just, like, you're numb and you're just, like, trying to do something, cling on to that memory or to that,
Mm.
and it was just a really sad ending to that chapter.
Yeah, and it's kinda like she's already down, and it's kinda like her mom passing is, like, kicking her when she's already down, she already
Yeah.
doesn't have her friend or her boyfriend around, and then this happens, and it's like I think that's so true for a lot of grievers. It's like you can't plan when people die, and usually it happens, like,
No.
at the worst time, and you're like and it's kind of it's I don't wanna say selfish, but it's just I think things that cross the minds of grievers of like, "Geez, like, I now have to go through this" and it's a life-changing experience when you have to
Yeah.
start grieving. I now have to plan for all these arrangements. I now have to figure out because like, I had to Google. I did not know what to do
Yeah.
when somebody died. Like, they don't teach you that. There's
Yeah.
no, like, rule
You
book
don't
out there
know.
on, like, what you do.
That was the end of chapter 2, so we'll probably read chapters 3 through 5 for the next one, and then, yeah, Kendall, you can kick off the kickoff.
Here I am kicking off the kickoff. We'll include resources in the show notes, and we'll have a new book club episode every Monday. If you're listening, you probably already know that. But we also have our holiday season going on, this kind of mini season around the holidays, talking about different topics with grief and what it's like during the holidays. And those are during our Tuesday slots until December 31st. You can also follow along with the book, I need to update that right now on Fable, where you can comment about how you're feeling about the book. You can chat with us about the book. And I think it's just like a cute little way for us to be a closer little community.
Yeah, and we have a few people that joined, so we need to
I know.
go back up.
I gotta send out an announcement, say sorry for switching the book.
I know, I logged in and I was like, "Oh, oh, oh, there's more people here." Gotta gotta do that. So how to connect, with us, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube with Two Girls with Grief Pod. You can subscribe to our Substack. We send that out bi-weekly. So you always have like a grief feature on there. And then we also do some other fun things in there as well. Like the last one, I added like a Christmas cocktail. So we're going to be adding and playing around different things that we add in that newsletter as well. And then you can email us at twogirlswithgrief@gmail.com. Feel free to just send us a message. You have book suggestions if you want to share your thoughts with us. We love hearing from you. And then if you've enjoyed these episodes, please rate, share, subscribe to our show. That really helps us get the word out through the different streaming platforms. Is it streaming platforms? Is
I
that the
think
name?
so.
Yeah. Through different platforms. Yeah, so please do that, and then, like Kendall said, we're doing this through the 31st, so our season 2 will kick off in January 2025. So, later. Bye. We'll see you next time. See you
Bye.
tomorrow. Bye.
See you tomorrow.